All right. Well, welcome to the Dead Presidents Club. This is episode number 1. Let's see what happens.
I'm kind of excited.
I'm also excited. I got my friend Dustin with me today, who is not only an entrepreneur, but is a podcast producer, or at least is now, because he's helping me produce this podcast. So, Dustin.
Gosh. That's a good, generous intro. I appreciate that.
Well, I could say more,
I hope you say less, actually. You probably know too much about me.
That might be true. We were very close in a men's group for...
That's so funny. Okay, so for context, I know Michael. We did a men's group together, and then we did a very unfortunate and wonderful and scary trip to Vegas together.
Well, I don't know what was unfortunate about it.
The things we can't talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to be really specific when we say things we can't talk about in Vegas, because there was no hookers or blow.
I know.
It was just a tremendous amount of gambling, mostly on my part.
Dude, I've actually never seen anybody go that hard. I was so impressed. I was legitimately like, I am impressed by this man. I want to learn how you do this.
That's terrifying.
No, you knew so many rules about blackjack that I didn't know actually existed.
What I'm finding terrifying about that, though, is that people are beginning to admire me for my blackjack and gambling abilities, not my actual financial acumen.
Are you net up or down?
In life?
No, blackjack.
Well, that's the only game I play, really.
Okay.
So, like my lifetime?
Yeah, in your lifetime.
Lifetime up.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, lifetime up.
No way.
Yeah, I don't have so I there were a couple of years that I didn't manage very closely. And then I started managing it more closely. So, I mean, I don't have like an exact number, but I'm definitely up. It's not tremendous. It's not like 6 figures or anything crazy like that. I'm definitely up.
But you've swung probably 6 figures at points, right?
In a year, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a year for sure, but never like in one sitting.
Dude, how do you do? Okay, you're a banker, right? So you're an ex-banker, right? You're an
I'm an ex-banker.
Ex-banker.
Yep.
And you're big with money. You're good with money. At least you...
At the very least, I'm good at making money.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, I'm good at that.
How do you reconcile, like, I'm going to a casino and I'm gambling, and I am a manager of money? Like, these are very closely related.
Yeah, so part of it is that they're compartmentalized. So like I have very clear like limits and thresholds and like things that I'm willing to do and not do when it comes to gambling. I really love gambling. Here's what I've learned. I love money, the game of money. Yeah. And so to me, like the game of money in all of its like outputs is what I'm interested in, what I love. So to me, blackjack is like one of the games of money. Now, if I were to compare it to like entrepreneurship or investing or whatever, like it's definitely a worse game in terms of odds. But it's just as much fun for me. So I don't put it in the same category as like an investment, obviously, but I the way that I manage it or the way I justify it is by compartmentalizing it to create parameters that doesn't affect my family negatively.
Okay, I kind of like that. It's funny. I actually view entrepreneurship as a game as well. Just emotionally, that's helpful for me. Because if I view it as like, this is your life, it stresses me the hell out, and I don't like that feeling at all.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, in that regard, when you think about entrepreneurship, I think in some respects, like entrepreneurship can be as risky as the blackjack table.
Oh, worse.
Like, yeah, I mean, maybe even worse sometimes. Because the thing with blackjack is there are rules that you play by, and they're the same every time. And so really what you're doing is you're banking on the slight casino edge not being in their favor that night.
What are the percentages? Best
50, 51, 49, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's literally like that.
And so you beat it. You beat the 1%, the 2%.
I have beat the 1%, 2% split in my life. Most of the time I walk out even. Damn. I mean, most of the time when you aggregate it, it's even.
Dude, on my bachelor party, were you up or down at the end?
For the year or for
that weekend?
What was your bachelor party? Oh, that was so I was up.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't up for the weekend because I paid for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you were so generous, man.
But I was up in terms of play.
Yeah.
The thing that sucked about that weekend is how bad of a loss I had that last night, because I would have walked away up the most I've ever been up, which was like, I forget what it was, and I don't even know if I want to say it out loud, but it was significant, like for me.
I felt so bad in that last night. I felt like, oh, I just let my friend down, because a good friend would have been like, bro, let's just go get a drink. Like I could have done that at any moment.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I just sat there.
But I get that. But I also, like, for me, like, I've like I feel if I'm nothing else, I'm like really, really responsible. Like I take strong responsibility. And so even when I do things that maybe weren't the most responsible decisions, I take responsibility for them. So it's like, to me, like I've had friends say that before where they've been with me when I've lost. Oh yeah. Friends that have been like, I've even had friends like literally like, hey man, we gotta go. And I'm like, guys, listen, like I'm not a gambling addict. I'm not running my family into the red. I'm not putting my house on the line. I got this. If it sucks, I'm going to deal with the suck. It's not on you.
Dude, the quickest way to get me to want to gamble is tell me that we have to go. So that actually.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, if you're like, hey, we shouldn't do this, then I'm literally like, well, fuck you, I'm going to do this.
No, that makes sense. I see. For me, part of the reason why I generally don't like to play with people is because part of the game with blackjack's a long game. Yeah. So you're playing the long game, you're playing the long ups and downs, and you're trying to ride the ups and downs in a way where the goal or the illusion is that you can find the top and try to get out somewhere around there. And the problem with that is when you're playing with people that don't have that level of interest or passion, you start to feel the pressure to leave. And what that does to me is it causes me to bet like more aggressively, which does have the potential for higher returns, but often ends up in a loss. So I prefer to not play with people unless they're like totally committed to being there. Like I've sat at blackjack tables for like 10 hours and like literally just played, and very few people are that way. And a lot of people listening to this would probably consider that to be a gambling addiction. I genuinely don't believe that I have.
You're there for the drinks. Man.
I'm there for the drinks. I genuinely don't. I mean, I love the game. I've got my threshold. Yeah. And if I walk away down or even if I lose what I came prepared to lose, I still love it because I got to play the game.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Dude, so, I've never really gotten that into blackjack. Poker, on the other hand,
you are good at poker.
I love poker.
I took a lot of money from you in poker on accident once, and you were not happy.
And I won it back.
You did win. You did.
I totally won it back. Yeah, that was okay. That was really frustrating because we all bought in with a certain amount, and then it was a digital currency, which there's a lot of rage about that because it was in COVID, right? You remember this?
Yep.
And so I'm on this boat. And I'm drinking. And
you were on a boat?
I was on a little paddle boat, man.
I didn't even know that.
So I'm just like texting my friends and looking at all this stuff. And then, I guess we're playing here. Oh, Michael has more chips. I'll get more chips. That sounds great. And I'm like, I just lost several $100s in a minute.
Yeah. So the thing that I do that frustrates my friends in like small poker games where it's like a $20, $40, $50 buy-in is that if there's no unlimited buy, when I inevitably lose because I'm not great at poker, I just re-buy in for like $200 and then dominate the table with chips. And so it does work, and it's fun for me. I enjoy that.
I'm glad you have fun with that.
So I got some questions for you. Speaking of digital currency,
yeah, hit me.
Like, what are your thoughts right now on? First of all, well, let's start here. What's going on with crypto? Because like you were a crypto bro for a little while.
I've never invested, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a voyeur. I just look at it.
I thought you were one of the guys that was like into it.
I think it's interesting, and I believe in the concept of it. I believe in like the future of crypto. I do think it's extremely volatile. It's an up and down. It's probably a little bit less risky than your gambling.
No, I don't think so.
No, come on.
Not if you look at this last year.
Yeah, but like if you got Bitcoin right now, you just put $20,000 in Bitcoin. In 5 years, I think you'll be net positive. I really believe
but if you said that 5 years ago, you would have lost.
Really? What was it 5 years ago? Exactly.
5 years ago, it was honestly 5 years ago. I think it was probably, what's Bitcoin at today? Like 18? It might be worse.
16.9.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I bet it was that. It feels like 5 years ago where Bitcoin really ran up from like 1,000
so look
to.
At this. This is it right there for the viewer, if you will. 5 years ago, boom. Is right when it jumped. No, 2020. Yeah. No. So 2 years ago is right when it spiked high.
Okay, so what was it 5 years ago then?
6,000.
Okay. So you'd still be up, to your point, still be up over 5 years. But like I bought a Bitcoin when it was 33,000.
You did?
I did.
You did? 33,000.
So here's an interesting thing.
Whoa, when did you cash out?
I didn't. I own it.
Oh, so you're down.
Because I don't lose unless I sell.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
Investing 101. I haven't lost any money in crypto because I haven't sold it. So the interesting thing is I agree with you. Like I believe in the future of crypto.
Yeah.
I believe in it as a currency, but I have a general rule that I don't invest in things that I don't understand. And crypto as an investing platform is really, really volatile, really complex.
Yeah.
People that say they understand it and say they understand the markets are lying. They don't. Like there's very few people that like nobody predicted this huge crypto crash we had. The only reason why I bought a Bitcoin is because I thought, you know what? Like I'm comfortable riding this Bitcoin because I think it'll be worth 100,000 eventually.
Well, that's what everybody says. That's the number. That's the big
number.
magic number, right?
But I thought you were deeper into it. So
I'm not. I'm really deep into the idea behind it. I love the idea behind it. I totally believe in it. I don't have enough money to throw it recklessly at it because I agree with you. I think it's super reckless, but it's super fun at the same time.
Yeah, and to your point, like if you were, I mean, and this is why I always joke and go like, I really don't think that, I don't think that it's the same as blackjack. Although if you look at it from like a volatility standpoint, it kind of has the same type of vibe. Like the people that I know that are investing in cryptocurrency are like, they're betting, they're just doubling down and hoping that it works out, or buying these weird obscure altcoins and hoping that Elon Musk sends a tweet about it.
Oh, I know. Actually, I do. Okay. In hindsight, I do wish I would have just followed the Musk train with that. And if he tweeted it, just like do it right there in that instant. I had a friend, he bought I'm politically agnostic to this, but he bought an FJB coin. So, it stands for fuck Joe Biden.
Okay.
Coin. And he saw it just came out and he was like, oh, I bet you this is going to go somewhere. And so he bought it and he cashed out at $65,000 the next day. And then obviously it tanked.
How much did he buy the coin for?
I think 1,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it worked out but it's a pump and dump, right? That's
Yeah. But the problem is that it's still speculative, right?
totally speculative. If you can find like the celebrity that's endorsing it, then play the speculative game. But if you can't, then just stay out.
Yeah. And I'll admit, like part of my aversion to it is I'm not close enough to the culture that drives those speculative investments. Like I'm not deep in the Reddit culture. I'm not deep in the even the Twitter, so I do think that there's a generational connection, like people that are closer to like the Robinhood era of investing is a little lost on me.
Dude, do you believe in the Robinhood style?
No.
No, how come?
Well, so I believe in it as an investment style. Like I think it's cool that you can invest on your phone. The problem that I have with it is that I don't think that the markets were ever built for a Robinhood dynamic. What we've got now is, 18-year-old kids who know how to work Reddit controlling entire markets and bankrupting hedge funds because they can get a big enough following of 16-year-olds that have Robinhood.
Dude, Sam Bankman-Fried. It's exactly that.
It's very, very closely paralleled, right? I've actually said, I mean, this is my controversial thought of the day, is that I don't think anybody should be allowed to invest in the stock market unless they have a certain amount of liquid assets. And
okay, what would it be? How would you
I think 25,000, and because 25,000 is the threshold for day trade.
Assets, like literally
cash.
Okay, so straight cash. Okay.
Straight cash that you can literally sit in the market as a stake. And 25,000 is the day trading limit, by the way. To be allowed to day trade, you have to have 25,000. But the reason for this is because I don't think that somebody who's got $100 should be able to manipulate a market look at GameStop. GameStop is a prime
example. It's the greatest story ever. It's the David and Goliath, man.
It's
awesome.
Hilarious, but it's totally fiscally wrong.
Okay, here's the interesting thing. GameStop happened, and both the Republicans and the Democrats got together and said, yes, this feels good. Everybody aligned for a moment to give the middle finger to some executives, which I guess you fall into that group. Which is,
I wasn't in the investment side of the banking, but yes, I mean, here's the point though, pro or against the big $1 billion hedge funds or not, can we at least agree that a mob of 16-year-olds should not have enough power to control Wall Street?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
That's my issue with the Robinhood era of investing.
Is it really that much? These small
that's what happened.
Bets are really just throwing everything off.
That's what happened with GameStop. GameStop literally bankrupted hedge funds.
Yeah, I
Like literally.
I shouldn't laugh. I think it's hilarious.
Well, but it is funny. It is funny because that is the social media driven society we live in, which is why, and Wall Street wasn't built for that. That's my point. Wall Street was built on, if you wanted to make a trade, you had to call somebody that was going to go to the trade floor and actually conduct.
Yeah, but that time is a long time past.
Long time past, but the rules and the system haven't evolved. So we're not protecting the system against the rapid ability for a bunch of people to drop $100 at mass and put GameStop at the same board table as Tesla.
Man, I'm so torn because a lot of people won't have $25,000 to invest.
That's
a
my
lot of
point.
people will not get there. And so you're saying unless you can get there, you haven't earned it.
You haven't earned the ability to do it yourself. You can still invest with an advisor.
All right.
A financial professional, somebody who actually understands how the market works. I'm just simply saying unless you've got a certain amount of skin in the game, you shouldn't be allowed to be a part of controlling the way the market runs.
Did you do this when you were in banking? Did you do investment at all? Or were you
not like in terms of like as a financial advisor?
were you an advisor?
No. Funny story. I came up in retail banking.
Oh, nice.
And when
Is that like you're the teller? You're like that?
So I started as a personal banker. So I started as the guy at the desk who was like opening checking accounts and like credit cards and things like that. And then I went up into management and ultimately went into a few different areas. But when I was in retail banking as a banker, I actually got hired by what was an investment company within the bank. So the bank had an investment side.
Yeah.
And this was right before the 2008 debacle. And so I got hired, I started the process of getting licensed, and then everything blew up. There was the big Merrill acquisition with Bank of America, like all of this stuff happened. And the guy who was going to be my boss was like, hey man, you can come on still. But if you don't have X number of assets under management, basically immediately you're going to be laid off. And so he's like, your choices are come on and like hope it works out, or we'll let you go and you can go back to the retail bank. And the retail bank was happy to take me back. So I actually skirted essentially losing my job in 2007, 8, 9 by barely getting into the investment side before everything blew up.
How did you get the assets under your?
I didn't. No. I literally just said, "Oh, I'm out," and I went back to retail.
Oh, you literally just totally didn't do it.
I literally, and so my point is like that's the closest I ever got to being on the investment side of the bank.
Isn't that lame though? Isn't that the spot you want to be?
It depends. I mean, I ended up building a career that I loved. Like I really enjoyed everything that I did. Yeah, I mean, like there was certainly an allure to the fact that I always wanted to be a big money manager. But I got to impact people and the bank and finance in a completely different way.
Okay, so you did banking for a long time. How many years?
Cumulatively, like over 15.
Oh, okay, so you're an expert. We could say that.
Yeah, right? I think so.
So then you leave. You have a nice little nest egg, and what'd you do with it?
Well, so there was actually, which time? I left the bank twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the first time I left the bank, my wife and I decided to start a nonprofit organization. We moved to Mexico, and I left the bank. We sold everything, and we started working doing orphan care in Latin America. Oh. Okay. And so I took about 4 years off, and we lived off of our savings.
You were in Mexico for 4 years?
No. So that's a whole nother story for another time. But we were in Mexico for a short portion of that time because I had my identity stolen while we were there. We hired an attorney. Short version of a long story is I hired an attorney that was going to help us get visas so that we could become residents in Mexico and stay there long term. And he ended up being a corrupt attorney. Actually, it ended up not even being an attorney.
Was he a Mexican attorney?
He was a Mexican attorney in Mexico.
That's awesome.
I went to his office, had a whole office set up. I mean, it was an elaborate front. And what he was doing was essentially using my identity, my American citizenship, falsifying documents to get visas for Mexican nationals.
That's weird. Why would they do that to somebody like you? Because you obviously have a lot more capital than the average person who goes there. They should just get some average Joe Schmo who wouldn't know how to fight this. But you have a lot more resources.
Well, because the issue wasn't about fighting anybody. The issue was just exploiting my identity for as long as he could and then disappearing.
Oh, okay.
And I paid him I forget what it was, like 5,000 a visa for visas that we never got.
Yeah, that's great.
In that respect, like the average person probably wouldn't have dropped that kind of money. And so we totally got taken advantage of. I got arrested in Mexico. I got deported from Mexico. They put me on Interpol. I wasn't allowed to leave the US for 5 years. Dude, it was nuts.
How many people are on Interpol? You're like in the top 0.001%. You're like with mobsters and gangsters.
Yeah.
And like the Italian mafia.
Yeah, and somebody who's trying to like help poor kids and orphans and like get out of my country. You're on Interpol.
Can I look you up still?
I on Interpol?
Yeah.
No.
Like, do they keep a history?
I don't know if they keep a history, but that was a whole nother deal. We had to petition the office in France. Like all the correspondence came in French. Literally we had to hire translators. We had to get the US. So you know what the craziest part about the whole deal, it was 5 years to get this resolved, to get me like literally I couldn't leave the country for 5 years and I couldn't get attorney support in the US because my issue was in Mexico and my issue was with Interpol and like literally nobody would help me. It was a nightmare. We ended up finding a guy who was a new attorney in Mexico, an American national who had gotten his Mexican citizenship and became an attorney in Mexico. He was the one that actually helped me solve this whole problem by petitioning the court in Mexico. They ended up taking it to like the version of like the Mexican Supreme Court. Oh my God. It was nuts. Homeland Security would show up at my house randomly and like interrogate me because I was like a person of interest, like I did nothing wrong.
Like you're getting knocks on the door and it's just men in suits and they're like,
literally,
I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Miller.
Yes. With big files. So one time, and they were obviously watching me because it would always, like the one time it came, my wife and I got back from Hawaii and it was that we got back late. We landed in like, I think we flew into Medford, and then drove home and we flew in at like midnight and at 9 a.m. the next day, Homeland Security was at my front door. So they obviously were knew that my flight.
They're trying to fatigue you. They're trying to get you the worst time they can get you.
I don't know what the logic was, but all I knew is that why would they have shown up the day after a flight unless they knew that I was on a flight?
Oh my God.
Right. So it just, the whole thing was a mess. It was like, I've actually got some PTSD from it. Like,
no kidding.
It was pretty gnarly, but all of that to be said, the first time I left the bank, we lived off our savings for that time where we were doing the nonprofit work. But then also like figuring this whole thing out for those 4 years. And then I went back to the bank for a few years. And then I actually just left a couple of years ago I think for good. We'll see. Well, there's always the possibility that I end back in the banking world. But
okay, that's great. Can we go back to this? I'm having a hard time taking advice from an ex-convict, which is good for me. But so you're in a Mexican prison. And you are there overnight, correct?
So it wasn't a Mexican prison. I mean, although that's much sexier to say, so we can say that. But it was the immigration.
The guy next to you has a knife. The other guy next to you is just guarding.
So the guy next to me was, it was the immigration holding cell. So it was basically all the people that they were deporting.
Oh, nice. That's great.
And one of them was literally crazy. So so keep in mind, I fly into Mexico. This is way off topic, but here we are.
Yeah, we're good.
I fly into Mexico after taking a 2-week trip home. I fly in, get stopped at the airport, and they say, "Sir, do you have a problem with your passport?" I said, "No, I don't have a problem with my passport." And they say, "Are you sure you don't have a problem with your passport?" I was like, "Well, it seems to me like you think I have a problem with my passport." And they're like, "Come with me."
Dude, were you being smart with them? Because you're like, I'm an American. I can do it. I'm good.
So I did get kind of gnarly until because when it first started, so they took me to this little interrogation room, like behind the immigration desks. And he started asking me all these crazy questions, like where's your Mexican family, like your Mexican children, your Mexican wife? And I'm like, I don't have Mexican relatives. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. All these weird, obscure questions that we later found out made sense because he submitted falsified birth certificates and marriage licenses for Mexican children that I didn't have to get them visas. We think that's what we think happened. But ultimately it was like, we didn't know. Like at the time I had no idea. We thought he was legitimately just trying to help us get visas. And so, they kept asking me all these crazy questions, and his English was really, really bad, but he didn't want to speak to me in Spanish. And my Spanish wasn't phenomenal, but it was better than his English. Yeah. And, but he wouldn't talk to me in Spanish. So it was like, I was trying to understand him with broken English. And finally he said, "Sir, we're not going to be able to let you pass." And I was like, pass what? And he's like, pass to Mexico, like pass through. And I laughed out. I said, why? And he goes, it's for national security. And I literally, in hindsight, such a dumbass thing to do or say, but I was so in my brain thinking that this is some stupid, crazy mix up. He probably just wants $5 or, a bribe or whatever. I literally laughed out loud and I go, when was the last time somebody tried to break into Mexico? Nobody laughed. Nobody laughed.
That's really funny.
Like nobody laughed. And then I realized that I was in trouble. And so they took all my stuff and threw me in the holding cell with a crazy dude who was literally like mentally unwell. He was like barking.
Is your wife like out there being like, okay, so where's my husband?
So yeah, God, this whole story is crazy. I feel, what's crazy is I feel a little anxiety right now.
It's awful. Yeah.
Even talking about it, it's still like, I've got so much PTSD over it, but my buddy Israel was actually picking me up at the airport because I flew in late. Oh, yeah. And so my buddy was picking me up. My wife was at our home in Mexico. And at this point, I was just texting them like, hey, there's some weird mix up. Like I'm figuring it out, whatever. And then finally, like when they told me that I wasn't going to be allowed to enter the country, I texted her and I was like, I called her and I was like, look, I need you to not freak out. They're not going to let me into the country and they're taking me somewhere and I don't know where. And so like, I just need you to know, like, this is where I'm at. Tell Israel, like, it, whatever.
Can't you just, at that point, you're still in America?
No, I'm in, well,
you're in this middle spot.
I don't know what the like sovereignty of that is, but I'm in the Guadalajara International Airport, like in the immigration.
All right. Yeah,
like, so I think I'm in Mexico for all intents and purposes. So, so I call her and she begins to panic, of course, which, whatever. And they take all my stuff and throw me into this holding tank. Give me no explanation. Kept saying things like, you know what you did. Like, you know what you've done. Kept saying stuff. And I'm like, guys, I don't know anything.
Dude, at some point, are you like, okay, I must have done something. What did I do? What did I do? And you're trying to figure it out.
I was panicking. Well, because we work with kids.
Oh.
And so I'm like, am I being accused of like something with children? Like my head started. Yeah. Like I'm like, and in Mexico they have this, this kind of saying that, in America you're innocent until proven guilty. In Mexico you're guilty till proven innocent. Mm-hmm. So I'm rattling these things through my head. Like I'm probably being accused of like human trafficking or like something. Like I had no idea what was going on. I was just spinning out. I don't know if I've experienced terror in my life until that moment, like true terror of not knowing what was going to happen. And we've worked like my brain was spinning out, like, cause we've worked in a lot of the kids in the orphanages we worked in, their parents were in these prisons. And so we would take kids to go visit their parents. And like, we've been in these prisons and I'm thinking like, this is not good. I'm not going to be okay. Like I'm built for comfort, not for speed. Like I'm not trying to go to Mexican prison.
You
but
just grab them off. You become somebody's bitch as fast as possible.
Oh yeah. You can call me Michelle.
Yeah.
They put me in there, blood and urine stained on them. There was bunk beds, and like a gross toilet, like whole toilet area in the corner. Crazy guy growling and barking literally on the bed across from me, like crazy, weird mental stuff. Spent the night there. No explanation, no nothing. The only thing that was like a silver lining is the guard was super kind. The guard at the door was super kind to me. I think he knew that something was wrong and like could tell that I was genuinely like not sure what was going on. Yeah. He offered me a part of his lunch. He brought me a water. Like he was very kind to me. That was like the only silver lining. But the weirdest thing happened. We were in the cell. Actually, the strange part about it is they took everything from me, but they let me keep my pillow that I had carried with me and my Bible. I had my Bible with me.
Oh, dude.
So I'm like literally.
Talk about a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, there's just this Bible. There's power in the Bible. And like, God. I've got like, I'm just trying to muster what yeah, literally. I'm like, Paul is in prison. Like, what do we do here? Like,
am I supposed to sing?
Literally. Here's the interesting part, and you'll laugh because you'll laugh at this, but this really truly happened. Yeah. I literally thought to myself, I don't know what else I'm going to do, but I am going to sing.
You did it.
I did.
You did the story.
I did the story.
Did the prison walls break down?
The prison walls did not break down, but what did happen, this is weird. This is a true story. This was not at all episode 1 of this podcast supposed to be, but this really in real life happened. Explain it how you will, but this is what happened. I started like sheepishly humming Amazing Grace.
Okay.
Because that's all I could get out. And I am terrorized. I remember the experience, like the physical experience of terror. The crazy guy that's growling and barking rolls over and goes to sleep.
Oh.
True story. The guard who had been like interrogating me and being really aggressive with me, not the nice guy, the immigration guy, comes into the room, takes off his shirt, lays down and goes to sleep. So there's 3 bunk beds in the room. These 2 guys that are being crazy and weird and negative in my environment are now sleeping in the room with me. Dude. And I'm like tripping out. So the weirdest part about the whole thing, honestly, is that on the blood and urine stained mattress, I fell asleep. Like I was able to fall asleep, and I woke up to the guard, the immigration guy putting his official shirt back on, and he said, "Come with me." And they took me out to a golf cart, like buggy thing, took me all the way out onto the tarmac. He apologized to me for being such a jerk.
No way.
Yeah. Apologized to me for being such a jerk, puts me onto a boarded airplane, like a fugitive. Like they pull a stairwell up.
Are you handcuffed?
No, I'm not handcuffed. I'm just on the buggy, but like I don't have any of my stuff. I don't know where I'm going. He's apologizing to me, and for some reason I'm feeling compassionate enough towards him to be like, yeah, it's cool, man. I get it.
Again, bro. Just keep singing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I get on the plane and all my stuff is sitting at the bulkhead. Like my luggage and my passport and all of that stuff. And the plane is completely boarded sitting on the tarmac. Like it had boarded at the terminal. Yeah. They brought me out, put me on. So I'm doing like the walk of shame, and I'm noticing that there's Americans on the plane. I don't know where it's going, but in my head, I'm like, this has got to be a good sign because wherever it's going, there's Americans. So it's, and they literally sent me back. It was 24 hours to the hour. They sent me back to Seattle where I originated from. On a boarded plane. So 24 hours to end back where I started.
Wait, so you're walking up this boarded plane and you're like, okay, now you're walking up the steps. Does everybody know that you came in from like this weird prison holding cell type thing?
Nobody knows. I wouldn't think anybody knows anything, but I got to imagine if you've been sitting on a boarded plane that has already taxied out to the tarmac and then some random guy gets added on like externally from the plane.
Did they give you first class? Were they nice?
No first class. As a matter of fact, the reason why I would say nobody knew what had happened was because I got on my cell phone immediately to start calling Jacqueline and people. And the stewardess was like, "Sir, you need to turn off your phone." And I was like, "You have no idea what kind of night I've had. Yeah. You're going to chill out." Like,
did you tell her that?
Yeah, literally. And so like, I don't think they even were informed why or where I was coming from. Like maybe they thought I was some VIP person. I don't know. So anyways, long story long, I ended back and it started a 5-year battle where it took us 4 years to even find out what had happened because Mexico was not willing to provide me information. They wanted me to appear to get the files of my...
And you're like, I don't want to go to Mexico.
I can't go to... That was my point, is I can't go to Mexico.
Oh my God.
Because the different entities in Mexico, they don't speak to each other. So like immigration doesn't talk to police doesn't talk to the PGR, which is their FBI. Like there's all these... And so it's like, you want me to appear to get the files. They won't let me in because this person is saying I'm a criminal. Like it was just this whole swirl. The next morning... we were able to find out that there was something. We were able to get with another attorney. Yeah. No, it wasn't the next morning. It was a few weeks later, actually, because we went round and round. Wow, this is a long version of a long story.
It's great.
Okay,
I'm really curious.
So I got with my attorney and I said, "Hey, what's going on, man? Like this whole thing happened." He's like, "No pasa nada," which is like, "Don't worry about it. It was a big misunderstanding. I fixed it. Come back." And I'm like, cool. Because part of the thing is that we were in the process of getting new visas. So like having some sort of immigration alert or something wasn't like that peculiar. It was just what happened that was peculiar. And he's like, "No pasa nada, come on back. We're fine." So this time I was like, okay, like we had no reason to believe that he was bad.
Yeah.
We just assumed that something had gone wrong. So the whole thing happens. This time my friend Israel was on, he's a touring musician. He was on tour. So I met him in LA and we flew back together so that I could have a translator, because I thought, like, because that's the other thing is, like, I spoke Spanish, but like not enough to understand what they made me sign all these documents I didn't understand.
It's legal Spanish.
Yeah.
Too,
and you're like, but I was just complying because I was scared. I was like, whatever it takes to like get out of here. Sure. Brought me in, got to the desk, scanned my passport. Sir, come with me. Brings my translator with me.
Seriously? So I mean, I would be scared shitless in this moment.
I am terrified. I get in there. We start to have this conversation. They ultimately say, translator's got to go. They kick him out, and I'm back to where I started. Ultimately, the good news was that because it was an earlier flight during the day, they put me on another flight back to LA that night. And at this point, it was a little bit better because I understood what was happening. Like, oh, I'm being sent away again. Yeah. Well, the problem was that this time I had originated from LA, so they didn't even send me home. They sent me to LA. So anyways, I got home. I ended up getting home. It took us... I called, and at this point we knew something was wrong with the attorney. Like, this is when we went, something's not right. Something's not working. So we got through a contact. We got another attorney in Mexico City who went down to the immigration headquarters, was able, to pull my file, and was basically like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but your alert is not good. Like, you've got a red immigration alert, and the like police are involved. There's stuff happening. You should probably get your wife out of the country. Because like, we just don't know, like, we don't know what's going on. At that point, we were worried, like there was some speculation that they could maybe hold her for me, like on behalf of my crimes or whatever. That afternoon, I flew my wife's dad out to Mexico to help her shut down our house. We had 2 dogs. We had to like figure out how to pack up and take home. I was like, leave them on the streets. I don't care. But apparently that didn't work. But her dad went down. They had to tie up the house. That afternoon, her dad gets there. The Mexican police show up with a petition for me to appear before a judge, essentially a warrant. Yeah. And my wife was like, he's not here. I know speak of Spanish, like trying to like the whole thing. The warrant had my name and the name of what we later found out was who they speculated was my Mexican wife. My gosh. So they were trying to basically put us as a couple in like for these crimes that they were accusing us of. Long story long, it started a 4-year battle. They put me on Interpol as a person of interest. There's different colors. If you know anything about Interpol, there's like different colors of flags, and the colors have different.
What severity are you?
I believe I was blue, which blue is, if I remember correctly, blue is that like this is a person who's caused trouble in another country and should be reviewed. But it's not like a criminal. It's just like, hey, this is a troublemaker. Yep. You should know about that. Like,
and you hold information about a crime. Ooh.
Oh,
that's the other interesting thing about it. Yeah.
Did you just look it up?
Yeah, I'm just looking it up right now. Blue issues a notice that collects additional information about the person suspected of committing a crime, or a person holding information about a crime. So, yeah, you're a suspect. Yeah.
So that I found out when I tried to go to Canada. Because we live 2 hours from the border of Canada. I found that out.
Oh, no. Yeah, because Canada's kind of awful for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them.
Yep. So I got detained and deported from Canada. It was a nightmare. So started a 5-year process. I bet we paid, I don't even know how much, more than I've ever lost in blackjack, to legal fees and attorneys and FedEx requests and all of this craziness.
The thing I'd be the most mad about is losing the sleep and the stress. The money, I probably wouldn't care if I was in your position. Like, that's frustrating, but like the stress, the anxiety of it all.
Well, I mean, to be honest, like that started what ended in like kind of a full-blown mental breakdown for me. It ended like in a really gnarly place for me, because I would have night terrors, and I would spin out, like I would have such bad anxiety and panic attacks that I would literally I would wake up in the night and I would be looking out the window and my wife would be like, what's going on? And I literally was like, Homeland Security's coming. They're going to knock down the door. U.S. Marshals are going to drag me. All this irrational, like terror, like severe stuff that I still have to work through. I'm leaps and bounds better than I've ever been, but it was legitimate trauma. And fun fact, tie it all back together.
Yeah.
By the way, everything's clear. I've been back to Mexico since. Everything's fine. We've got it figured out.
Okay, so you're no longer a fugitive. And
no longer a fugitive. As a matter of fact, the first time I went back to Mexico, I came with all these papers from my attorney and like all these legal things. And I had a visa in hand and like all this stuff to make sure it was cool. I walked up to the desk and the lady says, "We've been waiting for you." And I did not take that initially as a good thing. Yeah. The guy comes out, walks around, turns the corner. I lock eyes with him. It is the first guy who was in the interrogation office with me 5 years earlier. They fell asleep in the room. It was the same guy. And he looked at me and he said, "Last time I was kicking you out. Now I get to welcome you here as one of us." Because I had a temporary resident visa.
No way.
Yeah. And so it was kind of a cool full circle.
He remembered you
He
too.
remembered.
That's a big deal.
It was awesome. So anyways, that was my full circle crazy Mexico story. But what's interesting about the whole thing is that trauma actually is what originally led me back to the bank. Because I was in such a bad headspace that I got to the point where I needed to go back to what I felt was normal.
That's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's familiar.
Familiar, exactly. And so then that started another, 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years at the bank, and then I left just a little over a year ago.
I remember having conversations with you and you were thinking about leaving. So that actually means something. That means like you're like, I'm finally ready to take some pretty big risks again and all that stuff.
I guess I never really thought about it that way, but
think about it, right? Like I'm comfortable with normal, and now you're like, okay, let's go out. Let's take a risk.
Yeah, for sure.
What'd you do after you left the bank? Did you start a business?
So at that point I had been like, cause I had purchased some businesses. I had built a couple of businesses. I had several kind of companies going. I also invest in a myriad of things. And then I pivoted to go do some work for a tech company. And so I was kind of like 50-50, like working this tech company kind of by day, which was like this crazy cool, like learning experience, but also helped like underwrite the transition. Yeah. That's great. And then was continuing to build the companies and the investment structures that we've had. And and since then, that's what I've been doing. Actually, I've gotten out of sold and kind of given up a few of the companies so that I can really hone in now on what I'm focused in on, which is we have a construction business. We build ground up construction. We do property development, major remodel, and then real estate investing. Those are really the two big, as a matter of fact, I pivoted my entire stock portfolio out of the stock market. Everything, we went all in on the investment side in real estate. Yeah.
Dude, so that's why I don't do crypto. It's because I always bet on me and doing the things that I'm doing. So you pulled it out of the stock market and you bet on yourself.
I bet it. Yep. I cashed in my 401k.
Dang. Would you recommend? Is that official financial advice?
Well, I don't give any official financial advice.
Don't do the 401k. It's the worst investment ever.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's the worst investment ever, but it's definitely not the best investment ever. And for people that are, especially people that are entrepreneurs, like I can deploy that money and make exponentially larger returns over time than I could sitting on. Let me put it this way.
It's a good bet. Well, it's a good hedge in your bet. We'll keep going though.
Well, let me just put it this way. If all your assets were in the stock market, 401k, whatever it is, like you're not happy right now.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Yeah, I'm super happy. Even though the housing market is dipping and probably will continue.
You're still buying houses right now?
Still buying houses right now. Bought 12 last year. We're in contract on 2 more right now. Like, yeah, I don't, and it's not just houses. We're looking at apartment buildings. We're looking at different things, but yeah, I mean, the thing with real estate for me is like, everybody's like, oh, the market, it's going to crash, whatever. Like if you get into the deals right, it doesn't matter because I'm not trying to time the market. I'm literally getting in the market and then just planning to wait. So like, yeah, like things like flips, like if I'm trying to flip houses or something right now, like those are exponentially riskier if I've got to get in and get out quickly because I don't know what the market's going to be like in 6 months.
Just buying, renting it out and just sitting on it and then going to the next one.
We're doing both, but we're just planning our exits more carefully.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. What's your exit? Are you thinking like 10 years or?
Well, our exit for every project. So like I look at when I analyze a deal, I'll look at it. I'll look at every project and go like, well, I could do this. I could do this. I could do this. So that if this doesn't work, then I try this. If this doesn't work, I can always do this.
Okay, let me ask you this. I'm moving to Pennsylvania for a spell and then on to somewhere else perhaps. Should I purchase a second house in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Because I can get the new homeowner's loan, right? So I can get I can kind of skip a lot of the hassle.
Yeah, so you can do a myriad of things. If I were in your situation, I'd be buying. Well, this is my general advice to anybody: is buy as much real estate as you can, as long as it cash flows or is sustainable through your lifestyle, one way or another. You are never going to lose on real estate, even if you don't know how to source deals. Like, so most people, see, when we buy real estate deals, what people don't understand is I don't just get on Zillow and like find a house that's on the market and pay the price. I've got an entire marketing team built to find deals. We pay 30, 40, 50% less than market value when we buy a deal.
Just because you're looking better than everybody else.
Well, no, just because we're getting to the people who are either not thinking about selling or don't know that they can sell or that their houses are in such distress.
Do you go reach out to people? Like
Yes.
you'll like knock on doors, or if somebody's doing that kind of homework and say, hey, sir, ma'am, would you like to sell your house?
Yeah, I've got a team of cold callers right now that literally just robo dials. And people are listening to this, they hate people like me probably because you get a phone call that says, hey, would you like to sell your house?
Yeah.
But like we do, we've got the potential to do, 1, 2, 3 of those deals a month just by actively, it's called direct to seller marketing.
Yeah.
So I'm buying deals that never are on the MLS for a myriad of reasons. Like either the house is too distressed, they can't afford to fix it up. Grandma got cancer and they need to sell quickly. Yeah. And some of them are sad. Some of them are or people that literally were like, yeah, I've thought about it, but it's, we've actually talked to people that have said, I want to sell my house, but I can't fathom having people walk through it all the time to see it.
That's great. That's awesome for you. You're
Love
like,
it.
Sweet, send me some pics and then we'll do it.
Send me some pics. We'll pay you cash in 7 days. You walk away.
Dude, that's amazing. Imagine like being a 65, 75-year-old person who's like, well, I have an asset, but I have no money with the rest of my life. And then boom, you have a huge fat lump sum of cash, go rent a house, go live your life and call it good.
And they're happy they're happy to sell at the discounted price because they get to walk away as is too. Like, so some of these older people are hoarders and they're thinking like, I can't like clean. I'm not even like well enough to clean out my house. Yeah. Like, we're just like, hey, take what you want, leave the rest. We'll deal with it.
How much? Okay. So what's the average spread of discount that you get below the market?
Minimally is 30% minus rehab cost. So that's the base. And this is like house flipping 101. Like if you want to flip a house, the quick and dirty math on a house flip is whatever the after repair value is. So once the house has totally been repaired, what you could actually put it on the market for. So you got to learn how to analyze that number and figure out what that number is. So whatever that number is, minus 30% minus the projected rehab budget is the maximum price I will pay for a house.
What's projected rehab budget?
So like when I look at the house and I go, well, it definitely needs new floors, new carpet, new roof, whatever I estimate the total of that rehabilitation cost is, minus 30% is the maximum allowable offer, MAO, that we will make on a house.
That's great. All right, so are you doing all this homework yourself, all the numbers, or is somebody just giving you, hey, we think these are great options. Which one do you think we should go for?
So I analyze every deal myself, still, but I'm not a big fish. There's guys that are doing 10 of these a month. But I have a team now that gets all the way through offer phase before I ever get involved. So I've got a team of cold callers.
Literally through the offer phase.
Yes.
Like, before you even know, you say, hey, I just made an offer on a house. Sweet. What am I buying today?
Correct. Yeah. So So the only thing I haven't given them autonomy for is to actually send the contract. Yeah. But they get all the way to the point where the client verbally agrees to a price, and then I get involved, because by then now I want to validate all of the data that. So I've got it. So the way that it works is we've got a team of cold callers. The cold callers call a ridiculous number of people a day. Yeah. And the people that they identify as warm or hot leads go to a quality manager who listens to the calls, reviews the conversations, and determines whether or not they're quality leads or not. If they're quality leads, they get uploaded to a CRM. Okay. The CRM then goes to an acquisitions manager who follows up with that lead, that warm or hot lead, nourishes the conversation, builds rapport, figures out all the details of the property, gets the photos, runs the initial number analysis, and then ultimately makes an offer and negotiates price. Once they get a verbal agreement on that price, it gets fed to a hopper that comes directly to me.
This is great. You have a proper business. This is like a full-on business.
Proper business.
Okay. You're taking out loans as much as possible on this whole thing, I imagine, right?
Yeah. So, we fund some of the deals ourselves, but
that'll dry out really fast.
Yeah, we go back and forth because you can recycle money too. But yeah, I mean, we borrow our asses off for sure.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Yeah. So like the rule of thumb, like with flips, for example, is like whatever you raise is what you'll make in profit.
Huh.
So like this year we have a goal to net profit $1 million. That's our goal as a company.
But you're not going to cash flow $1 million. What do you mean?
No, but I won't cash flow $1 million, but I'll make $1 million in wholesale fees and flip profit. So there's the problem. This is what's always said. The problem with real estate is that there's a million ways to make money in real estate. Like that's the problem with real estate is that, and we've all heard analysis paralysis, right? So this is what ends up happening to people is they get into real estate, they start watching the YouTubes, they start listening to podcasts like this, and they learn that there's a million options and they can never figure out which one's the right one for them.
Okay, what's the right one for them? Or what's the right one? Well, keep going.
Well, I mean, that is the answer. The right one for you is the one that feels like it fits. Like choose one and go.
Okay, what's the right one for me? I have no formal income, which means I can't get good loans. Not easy.
No, but you can get loans easy.
Oh, really? What's the best way to do that?
Hard money, private money. Basically, the acronym we use is OPM.
I call up Uncle Michael and I
call up Uncle Michael. Yeah. So a great example for you would be like, well, a couple of things. Wow, now we're going down a totally different track, but this is good. So the first and foremost thing that you could do with zero of your own dollars or almost zero of your own dollars is what's called wholesaling. So wholesaling is when you own a house here in Reading. What's your house worth? 330,000. So I market to you and I go, hey, Dustin, you interested in selling your house? And you're like, yeah, I'm moving to Pennsylvania. Actually, I would be interested in that. Great. Cool. And maybe you're in distress. Like you actually have to move to Pennsylvania, like right now. And the house is worth 330, but you only owe 200 on it because of your down payment and whatever. And so we figure out like, hey, Dustin, in order to get to Pennsylvania, what's the number that you need to walk away with? And you're like, man, I need 25 grand. And so we work out a deal and I run the numbers. And if the numbers make sense where I can give you $25,000, then I may buy your house and, for $225,000, pay off the loan, you get 25, I get the house that's worth 330, right?
Great for you,
it's great.
Yeah.
Great for me. Well, it might not be bad for you if you don't have another
circumstance.
In your current circumstances, sure, but the litany of people that may not have another choice. Right? So now there's another scenario where let's just say that the house is worth 330. I've offered you 225. Instead of buying that house, what I can do is go find another buyer and sell the contract or assign the contract to them for 250. Let's just say, and now you get your 25,000. I get 25,000 as an assignment fee, and the buyer, the investor, the end buyer gets a $330,000 house for 250.
That's good. I like that one.
So those numbers aren't exactly right because the spreads are generally wider than that.
Have you done that for people though?
I'm just now moving into the wholesaling side. Everything we've done so far has been flip and BRRRR, which is the BRRRR method, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So where we actually end up holding a property.
No, I like the wholesaling. That's way less risk for you.
Super low risk, sometimes less reward.
Well, yeah, but that's totally worth it. Especially, let's say me, in my position, I could actually do that. I could not go out and buy 4 houses. That would be also way too complicated for me to handle the finance.
Potentially, but that's the thing that people don't realize too, is like the things that you think are mega complex are really not that complex if you just do a little bit of research to figure it out. So option 1, yes, you can absolutely get into real estate, wholesaling contracts for basically zero money. The cost of marketing is essentially what it is, but it is a grind.
What's the best resource to learn out of this stuff? Like I want to learn wholesaling. Where do I go?
There's a litany of real estate classes and courses. For me, I work with a group called Wealthy Investor. Okay. So I'm a part of a mastermind program. And so if you've got interest in that, you can reach out to me and I can get you connected with that. But we've got literally a rookie track where you can sign up, get involved, go through the track, and they will teach you how to build your wholesale business, build your flip business, build your rental business.
Okay.
And so I think there's, my gosh, over 1,000 students in the program now. So
The thing I worry about that is there's so many versions of information, and so much of it is probably junk information.
For
that's
sure.
probably why you chose the mastermind, right? I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can get on the internet and learn a lot of bad things, like a lot of quick ways to go broke. And actually, that's what's interesting. One of the things that connected me to my mastermind was the comment that was made by the guy who founded it. Was his big slogan is "Don't go broke buying good deals." And so like a lot of his messaging was learning how to build the infrastructure, because it's totally true. I could go buy a litany of good deals and still go broke if I don't have the structure, the system, and the cash flow to make sure that I can close the loop and convert those deals back to cash. And so there's a lot to learn, but people get overwhelmed by it. What you really need is just to get into an environment where somebody's willing to coach you.
is this okay? That sounds interesting. I like that. I like all the thoughts of that. It's great. It lines up really well because I'm actually thinking about buying a second house. So I love all of this. But I also love starting businesses. And that's super freaking fun. Is this fun? Do you personally feel like rewarded doing this?
I love it because it ticks a couple of boxes for me. Because I'm a business guy.
Yeah.
I love the game of money. And I've got a banking background.
Yeah.
So it ticks a lot of the boxes for me because, as you just heard, it's not like I just am buying and selling. Like the business that I'm in is not just the buying and selling of real estate. It's the marketing, the sales, the acquisition, the assignment, the disposition. Like there's a whole business that I've built that is a real estate investing business. When I tell people I'm a real estate investor, they think that I'm just running around like writing checks for properties and like, I don't know, being like some sort of mogul. No, I love the business. It's leadership, it's systems, it's structure, it's risk. Like guys like you and I love the risk. Like the calculated risk is what makes it fun.
Okay.
And so it checks the business box. The other thing that isn't true for all people is that I've always loved real estate itself. So like, I'm not a big TV guy. So like at night when my wife and I are spending time together or we're just hanging out, she'll be watching, whatever show she likes. And I'm surfing Zillow. Yeah. Like it's been this way since I was a teenager. And so for me, there's a passion tied to like, I just love real estate. And then the banking and finance side, the thing that people don't really understand is that this is finance and lending is how money is created.
Yes.
And so like this is the art of creating money. And that is fascinating to me because literally I'll buy a multifamily unit that's worth $1 million. And by doing this, and this, it's called forced appreciation. I tick a couple of boxes. I raise the net operating income a little bit by raising the rents a little bit. And now this thing's worth 1.5. I created that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that part is super fun for me because it's like this economic like phenomenon that a lot of people don't fully understand. The same thing with borrowing money.
Yeah.
Borrowing money is how money is created. Debt is how money is created. It's the promise to pay. Like
Dude,
that.
It's good and bad. I wish I understood more of this, but okay, tell me if I'm wrong here. So like, let's say you and I have $10, right? And I say, hey, Michael, can I borrow 2 of your $10? Oh, sweet. So now you have 8. Now I have 12. But you say, but I want an extra $1 back. We literally just created $1. Is that correct? That's how it works, right?
Essentially, So it's a little bit more complicated than that because I'm not actually giving you $2. I'm giving you a contract.
Yes.
So where the dollar is created is that I never handed you those $2 to begin with. I promised you those $2 and you promised me 3. But the difference is when you paid it off, you actually gave me 3.
Yeah.
I gave you a contract. You gave me $3.
And this is like the general problem with things like Coinbase and all that shit that's not regulated by actually good regulations.
Well, I mean, the flip side of that's could be argued is that this is the problem with the banking system because take the private lending out of the equation. When I'm a bank, you as an individual give me your money, I get to lend that same dollar out 10 times. Mm-hmm. It's called fractional banking. So what ends up happening is that none of that money is actually real.
Yeah.
It's actually literally being created. And so it's the issue is that like if the bank's not keeping, this is my problem with cash, because if the bank's not keeping your cash, then why are we believing that we should have a bunch of it?
Do you have cash on hand? Do you keep cash on hand?
I keep the number that is necessary to operate my companies, and then the number that is necessary to
Like a rainy day.
well, no, to operate my life.
Oh, okay.
Like to keep my life comfortable. But no, like I don't, like I would be considered cash poor. Like the big joke in real estate is that we're all millionaires with no cash, like no money. Like we're broke millionaires because all of our assets are tied up in real estate, which is tremendously illiquid. That's the disadvantage of real estate.
I don't know. I feel like it's not as liquid as you think. If you had to, you could sell a house in 3 months.
Possibly, but maybe at a loss.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. So it's, and 3 months by definition is still really illiquid.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I could sell a stock today.
Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
good.
stocks are far more liquid than real estate. But
I get that.
so I got a question for you. So you're moving to Pennsylvania and you're thinking about buying a house. So like what's the plan?
For buying a house?
Or yeah, like exactly. Like so you got your house in Reading.
Yep.
And then you're moving to Pennsylvania. Like what's the plan with the Reading house?
So the Reading house, what I'm doing with it right now is I'm renting it out. I went through a property management company. I forget what they're called, but they're great. Love it. So I don't have to worry about that. Right?
Long-term rental or short-term?
Long-term.
Okay.
I don't want to do short-term.
It's great.
I just don't want the headache. But you know, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong move. Is that the wrong move or the right move? What would you do?
Different strokes, different folks.
Okay. Yeah. So long-term rental, then moving to Pennsylvania, we'll have some time there. And with the extra time, I'm thinking, hold on, if I can find out a way to make it, so my income is funny. And so I haven't solved this problem yet. And you might be able to help me solve this problem is my income is not in a normal W-2 type of arrangement. So banks don't like to lend to that traditionally. So I have to solve that issue.
Conventional banks.
Okay.
No.
So the Uncle Michael Bank might, but
Well, and there's a litany of other products besides just Uncle Michael.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that, but carry on.
Totally. So I was thinking about buying a house. I was thinking, ooh, man, if I could get a triplex or a duplex or something like that, that would be really good.
I love that. So that's where I was going to go with this because, because you're in a unique situation in that you've got this, comparatively, like you just got married, right?
Yeah.
You guys are building your businesses, your financial life, it's all you're building.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity that I maybe don't have. Like my wife is not going to let me move into a duplex and rent one side out. Like you have an opportunity. You don't have kids yet, like all of that. So if I were in your situation, I'd be buying the FHA will allow you to buy up to 4 units on an FHA, 3.5% down, and you only have to occupy one.
So get a fourplex.
Get a fourplex if you can qualify for FHA.
Which it's just my income. That's the huge issue right there. Right?
So you may run into it depending upon how you're. So first of all, banks will lend to you if you don't have W-2.
Don't you need 2 years of it though?
Depends. I mean, every product is different, but yeah, generally 2 years of tax returns. But if you do a lot of under the table work, that's where you can, generally find yourself in trouble because the banks aren't going to look at that. But what you can do is what's called a DSCR loan or a hard money loan or a private money loan. So let's break those down. Please. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. What a DSCR loan does is it doesn't look at the finances or the tax returns of the individual. It looks at the pro forma of the rent of the property that you're looking to buy as a rental or as an investment.
That's good.
Okay. So you could potentially go find a good fourplex deal that has enough rent potential to cover the mortgage at say a 1.1 to a 1.3 DSCR, which means for every $1, 1.3 DSCR is that for every $1 of expense or debt, there should be $1.30 in rent. Okay. So that would be like the magic number, like 1.25 or 1.3. So if I've got $1,000 in mortgage expense, I want, $1,300 in rent. That would be a 1.3 DSCR.
That seems really hard if I buy a $300,000 fourplex.
Well, no, because, a couple of things. One, you can look at it both long-term and short-term. Okay. So they'll look at, and there's analytics that you can use to determine what those numbers are. And you buy a $300,000 fourplex, you're renting 3 or 4 units, not just one home. Right. So generally speaking, you're going to have a better cash flow position, but you're absolutely right. You've got to be able to get into the deal right. Yep. The disadvantage of DSCR is that they're generally only going to give you 75% loan to value. So you've got to bring some cash to the table.
Yeah.
In your situation, there's three primary ways I would see to do that. One would be savings if you have it. Two would be Uncle Michael, a private money lender. And the way that works is simple. You go to somebody that you know that's got the cash you need, and you offer them a rate of return, and they are, in exchange, they get a lien position on the property, right? And so mom and dad, friends, family, people, whatever. The third option in your situation that could be interesting would be to cash out of your existing home because you've got equity. You could pull cash out of that home, put it down on another property, and ultimately...
You would say refinance it?
Refinance, home equity line.
Yeah. But the interest rates are pretty bad right now, right? Wouldn't you say that's not the ideal circumstance?
Yeah, so, and I don't, again, we're like speaking like pejoratively, like I don't know all of your situation, but yeah, I mean, if you've got 2.5% interest on your loan right now, going to 7 is probably not.
My loan is at 2.5%. Actually, it's like 2.6.
Yeah,
so that works out great.
So in that scenario, you could still pull like an equity line of credit, though, a second mortgage.
I should do this. I like this. I feel like what I would honestly do is call some friends. But I think to get a place like that, I would need what? If I got the 300,000, I would need 30,000 put down. If I was doing 10%, if I was doing 25%,
if you're doing a DSCR loan, you'd need like
75 grand, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I have to refinance, or I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Okay. If you were in my position, would you do it? Like,
all day long.
No matter what, just like find a way, do it.
So the first thing I would probably do, again, I'm like speaking like really pejorative. I don't know your full financial picture, but like if I were in your shoes, probably the first thing I would do would be to get with a broker, a mortgage broker, and go like, hey, I've now, because the other thing you can use is the rents on your existing renting home towards your income. So that'll help offset your, your income, debt to income ratio. But, the first thing I would do is get with a broker, get all my financials to them and go like, can we make something conventionally work? Because in a perfect world, you go buy a fourplex FHA at 3.5% down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
the perfect world, right? And you just pay the rate because it's a long-term play, right? Yeah. Option B would be finding the mechanism to get 25% down and do a DSCR loan on a multiplex.
No, I choose FHA. I like FHA all day.
Well, yeah, but if you don't qualify, then see, I guess this is my point: is if you don't qualify for the FHA, I wouldn't use that as the barrier to entry.
Hold on? Can my wife qualify for the FHA? Because I bought my house before getting married. The house is in my name. It's not technically in her name, but we are legally.
You can have multiple FHA loans.
Oh, really?
You just have to own or occupy them. You have to intend to own or occupy for a year.
Oh, I can intend to do anything really nicely. It's great.
Well, you don't want your broker to hear that, but you are. I mean, the reality is you are going to own or occupy it, so it's fine. Like you can keep your FHA loan and have another one. That's not a problem. It's not people think that the FHA loan is just a first time home buyer loan, and it's not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sweet. I like that. We're coming towards the end, at least for me, because I have to go. But can I ask you a bunch of questions really fast and just answer them really fast?
Yeah.
Okay. You're Michael. You do a lot of banking. You do a lot of investing. What's the worst investment you've ever done?
Worst investment I've ever done? By the financial?
Yeah. Not like your first marriage or something like that.
I've only been married once. God, that's really, really hard. Come back to it.
Okay. What do most Americans get wrong about investing?
They invest in things they don't understand.
Oh, so like literally anything. They just get into it prematurely.
Yeah, they get into stuff they don't understand, or they buy hype.
Okay.
That's probably the worst thing I see people do.
What am I getting wrong with investing?
Well, I don't know your full financial picture.
Shoot from the hip.
I would say that you're trying to you're allowing your income situation to dictate your investment potential.
Oh, that's good. Okay, yeah. That is pretty good. Okay, I like that. Should I get into crypto?
No.
Should you get into crypto?
No.
Should anybody get into crypto? Do you not believe in it at all?
No, I just don't. I'm assuming you mean that as an investment strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really believe in it as an investment strategy until it gets stabilized and somehow figured out. Yeah. Like I just don't see it. I can't. It's too hard for me to call it an investment.
Okay. I want to give you one last question. Do people ever pitch you?
Pitch me?
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, Michael, will you invest in my company?" Does that ever happen? What's the worst pitch you've ever gotten?
A lot of them are bad, but a lot of them are Most of them are, well, first of all, I've never invested in somebody who's pitched me cold.
Really?
Never.
Why not?
The only investments I've ever made have been either deals of people that like I've interacted with over time or deals that I've identified. That's not true. I'm technically in the construction company because I got pitched. That's actually the only time, but it wasn't really, that was a little unusual because it wasn't that they were pitching me as an investor. It's that they needed like a manager. They needed a CEO.
Okay.
And so that's how I ended up in that. But I've gotten a lot of bad pitches. I think the worst one, most of them are not bad ideas. They're just poorly organized or executed.
They just not have like any numbers, any analytics, any predictive stuff, anything.
Oh no, so the people that have those are rare. Like, so if you're going to pitch an investor, like, yeah, actually do the work. So like I've had people pitch me ideas that are probably good ideas, but I have no faith in your ability to execute them. So you remember that most investors don't invest in ideas. They invest in people. Like at the end of the day, like if you present me something that I don't fully connect with, but I really connect with you, I'm much more likely to give you what you need.
You probably even at that point would say, yeah, it's a terrible idea. Get a better one. Come back.
Certainly. Or I would just go so you've thrown some ideas out, not to pitch to me, but you've thrown ideas out. And I'm like, I don't know if that's totally like monetizable, but I really think if anybody could do it, it'd be Dustin, and I'd throw money at it.
Oh, that's good. That one time I was going to start a lube brand. That was great.
Yeah, that's true. Hot sauce.
Yeah, actually, I got pretty far on that idea, actually. Dude, that's it. That's all I got for right now.
Hey, man, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I hope this was good enough. It was a little weird off the rails there for a minute, but...
No, it's great. I love it. I think it's good.
Cool.
Episode 1 in the bag.
Episode 1 in the bag.
Done.